In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so excited we're going to be spending this time here today. We've got such a show lined up. Our first guest is Joanna Garzilli, and she's the author of Big Miracles, 11 Spiritual Rules for Ultimate Success. Now, Joanna has been an intuitive for over 20 years, doing readings and spiritual coaching sessions for business leaders, entrepreneurs, celebrities, including people like Goldie Hawn, Monica Lewinsky, Aaron Banks, Hall of Fame basketball player, and Robbie Rogers, who is with the U.S. Olympic team. So she's a media personality, has been featured nationally and internationally, including CNN Money, Huffington Post, Runway, and Elle Magazine. So let's welcome to the show, Joanna.
Oh, Marianne, it's wonderful to be here. I'm so excited to dive into manifesting big miracles.
Oh, we can never talk enough about that because I just love your approach. And I know, we've kind of chatted about this before. I feel it's so empowering to, your book is so empowering to just, people can take it and kind of run with it and really start developing those big miracles in their lives.
And I think that what's crucial here is that the idea of miracles, I think people have this perception of it's something that just happens out of nowhere. And really what I wanted to communicate was that big miracles are very accessible. It just comes down to breaking it into small, easy to manage steps. And so there is a practical approach behind the spirituality and the fusion of those two things together that I know is really going to help people.
Oh, well, I have to ask. So what inspired you to write this book?
What inspired me to write Big Miracles is that my life was such a mess.
I think we can all relate to that at one point or another,
So for me, spirituality has always been part of my core, but I think when I was very young, I didn't understand how to integrate it. And so I really had a lot of resistance to spiritual practice. And I sort of leaned towards the other way of things. I never got into drugs or anything like that, but I was very much focused. I was attracted to people who had a lot of issues. And I think I was attracted to those people because it helped me feel better about myself of, oh, here's this person who's really messed up, so I'm really not that screwed up. And as I went through my life, I eventually, it was as if I was drawn towards needing to embrace spirituality. But what happened was I started going to a lot of workshops on spirituality and reading different books. But because I was in so much internal pain that I didn't understand that I was in that pain, I would think, well, if I just pick up a book and whiz through it, if I just get to this advanced level of Reiki, if I just travel to this PowerPoint on the planet and work with this amazing shaman, everything's going to be different. And what would happen was when I would read that book or go to that workshop or travel to that amazing place, I would feel incredible while I was there, and then I would come back to my environment, my relationships. Obviously, wherever I went, there I was. And I found that this discontent would come up from within. And that was when it started to progressively dawn on me that I needed to integrate the spirituality. And so I found that I had to slow down and then go, where I'm hearing these great certain principles from certain spiritual masters, how can I just take one small aspect of that, not be totally overwhelmed, and successfully implement it in my life? So I went from speeding through stuff and trying to be this powerhouse and held together to really letting myself totally break apart and just be with some very small, simple pieces of information, and then sort of just going, oh, I know this, I know that. I focused on how can I just, for example, like rule 1 from Big Miracles, align with spirit. How can I align with spirit today? What can I do to have that experience? And what does that look like? And that started to transform my life rapidly from where I was a disaster in relationships to meeting my husband, from where I couldn't generate a dime to being able to successfully become an entrepreneur and help other people do the same. So that's where I just thought, if I put it together step by step, and then within these 11 rules, define each piece of information and help people understand where they are at within the rule, and also not to beat themselves up for where they are. Because I wonder, Marianne, do you have the same experience where you find yourself going back through the same lessons but from a different perspective? It's as if you move up through the spiral at a different level of consciousness.
Yes. Yeah, I think we all can relate to that, where it's like, why is this showing up again? You know, I've done the workshops. I've done, like how you were saying, you go through all these steps, and it's like, I've done all this. Why is this showing up?
And being able to embrace that, right?
Yeah.
I have had a lot of resistance to embracing a breakthrough. And so now I just find that when I have got stuck, and I still get stuck in certain areas, I don't do it all perfectly, and then I will just come back to the 11 rules, or I'll just open somewhere in Big Miracles. It's sort of surreal for me now, because I go, oh, that's really good. And then I go, wow, I wrote that. But I know that goes to rule 2 about being a spiritual vehicle. There was something really cool happen for me when, before I signed my deal with HarperCollins, and I remember I sat down for a lunch with Libby Edelson and Claudia Boutot from Harper Elixir, and the thing that resonated so deeply with me was when Libby said, our perspective is that we are of service to the book. And I thought, oh, that's it. Like, yes, I get to be that spiritual vehicle. So for me in that instance, it was in regards to the book, but it could be for anything in one's life, whether it's being a teacher or having a bricks and mortar type business, a certain message to put out there. It was as the Spirit gave me this download in terms of there are things that need to be improved in the world, and there are these different job opportunities. And Spirit says, who wants to volunteer for this position to make a difference, to step into that role? And I feel that Big Miracles was something that already existed within the universe. It was there, that it just hadn't been grounded yet. And I put my hand up and I said, I want to be that spiritual vehicle. And then I had to work really deeply on myself to get into that next level of alignment, to be able to bring the book through me. And something interesting happened after I wrote the book, is that I got into what I believe is in the best shape of my life, because I have had issues with weight and emotional eating because of being just very sensitive at an energy level. And I know a lot of people who are spiritually in tune are very sensitive to other people's energy, and they're like sponges. And for me, I would just turn to food. And so being able to follow these 11 rules and implement them has allowed me to maintain a healthy body weight, to feel good when I look at myself in the mirror, to have better energy levels, because I struggled with that pretty much my whole life. And that the only area where I find I still get challenged is that, let's say I have a day where I eat something not quite as healthy. I have a little bit of sugar, or maybe I succumb to a little bit of caffeine or something like that. Instead of, it's okay. Just, you're not out of alignment. You're still on track. Don't be so hard on yourself. If you're doing eating clean and taking care of yourself 80% of the time, right, it goes back to that 80-20 principle rule that Richard Koch talked about in his book, then that's good enough.
Well, and that's so important because I think a lot of times when we make mistakes, we can really be so hard on ourselves. And so, what happens when we do make mistakes, and what is that spiritual silver line that you talk about in your book?
Well, I think from mistakes comes our greatest learning. I mean, we see it throughout history with leaders and innovators that have gone before us, and that rather than look at a mistake and go, I messed up again, which I would absolutely mentally beat myself up, and I've seen my clients do it too, and I'm sure you have as well with many of the people that you work with and guide, is that to just be able to go, I am learning here. And the fact that I feel that being willing to make a mistake is a courageous act. It's saying, yes, I am moving forward, because mistakes mean that we are willing to move into uncharted territory, and we're willing to be imperfect. And that doesn't mean that there's something wrong in some way. And that's why I really, Rule 4 was the first rule. I didn't write up the rules in order. Initially, I wrote Rule 4, forgive mistakes first. And the question for that is, what if your mistakes are miracles waiting to happen?
That's the part in your book I really liked, and I would love for you to expand on that.
Right, so I really believe that there is some purpose to it. When I look back and I go, gosh, if I just studied harder at school, I could have gone to, if I'd really disciplined myself, I believe I could have gone into Oxford or Cambridge. But I was just running around the London club scene, doing the whole socialite thing, wanting to be seen. I was so insecure and just wanted to be around a certain crowd of people. And then my husband said to me this morning, he said, well, if you got into Oxford or Cambridge, there's no way that we would have been together. And he said, you'd probably been living in England on some country estate. There's a big house there. And I thought, yes, he's right. And I looked at him across the table and said, why, I wouldn't change the experience of the world. I know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, and I couldn't be happier than be with you. And so even when I look back of all the times that I didn't study hard enough, or I didn't put enough effort in, or I said the wrong thing to someone and upset someone, or I misunderstood or had this assumption that someone felt a certain way when they didn't, and I wasted time and energy with that now today in my life, I get to do things differently. I get the opportunities, I think, come up to be of service, to be a great, whether it's a great spouse or a great sibling or a great daughter or mother or co-worker or collaborator or leader or student, that there is an opportunity to do that in a way where one can feel great. It's never too late to do that. And this idea of, oh, well, a big miracle, how can that happen now if someone has gone through a divorce, is being laid off at work, is struggling with debt, that time for turnaround can happen so quickly. I know I've gone through that in my own life, and I've seen that repeatedly with clients that I've worked with, and people have come to my workshops. They've been in a really difficult place, and almost, I saw one client I worked with, she was making around $1,500 a month and had disaster in relationships. And then as we looked at the tweak, like the mistake for her was that she felt that she had to be part of a team. And I remember having this strong, overwhelming feeling that she needed to be a leader in her own business and have a support team around her rather than just be part of the team. And she said, well, I think maybe that's arrogant, or I shouldn't do that, or I can't do it. But as she stepped into that within a 6-week period, she met the partner that she's still with, and she closed a $50,000 contract. Now, that's, it's different for everyone, and everyone's idea of ultimate success is different. But just making one simple change and going, what can I give myself permission to do? What can I do differently that then can set off a chain of events that allow a massive transformation within a short space of time that is truly miraculous, and it is available to all of us. And that's also why with Big Miracles, I really looked at the past 20 years of what are some of the commonalities I see for myself, from my friends, and from the clients that I've worked with, and then other leaders in industries. Sort of like, I guess, what Napoleon Hill did in Think and Grow Rich, right, where he pulled together all that information and put it together piece by piece. Napoleon Hill was a great inspiration for me in collating this information.
I think he has been for a lot of people in business, and I really like how your book is really a roadmap for people to, it covers like all aspects in regards to our health, in our relationship with money. 'Cause a lot of times, maybe someone's doing really well in one area, but they really want to, to excel maybe in, maybe they're out of alignment or have misalignment with their relationship with money.
Absolutely. I believe very much that money and love are interconnected. And when sometimes someone would say to me, well, I just want to make more money, or how do I make more money? And I'd say, let's do a meditation to center, ground, connect. That's the foundation of Rule 1. The center, ground, connect meditation is what one uses throughout Big Miracles and being able to understand and implement the rules. And there would be some resistance to that of how is doing a meditation going to help me generate more income. But I really believe when one moves to that inner focus and gives oneself permission to feel and to dream and to listen to one's insights, that then that resistance to receiving money, to taking the next step to generate the income, those barriers are broken down, and that's where the breakthrough comes. So I really believe if someone is feeling very, very stuck, overwhelmed, scared about their circumstances and they don't know what to do next, closing one's eyes, focusing inwards, bringing awareness to the heart, and just saying to Spirit, where am I misaligned? And what is one simple step that I can take next to get into alignment? And then the other thing with that is that if someone might ask, and I've often been asked this, is, well, how do I know when I'm in alignment versus when I'm misaligned? And it's very, very simple. In its simplest form, you know you're aligned if you feel good. If you feel good, you feel great, you feel happy, you are in alignment. There's just that feeling of contentment within oneself. You know you're misaligned when you feel sick, or you feel tired, or you feel resentful, or you feel angry. But a very important, subtle thing here is that the law of cause and effect plays into understanding whether you're aligned or misaligned. So let's say, for example, someone has, so many people have had colds this season, myself included in that. I haven't been sick for about 2 years, and we moved back from Arizona to California. I don't think I really took into consideration how big that move was going to be. I just thought, I'll just power through, and I just felt wiped out after that. And a couple of things stood out to me here was that I thought when I got sick and I didn't take any medicine in the end, I just really did the inner work and took care of myself, did more sort of holistic self-care, and I managed to get through it without taking any antibiotics. And I realized the thing is that when I connected in with Spirit and I said, what happened here? Why am I misaligned? I saw that I pushed myself too hard. I didn't give myself permission to slow down. And that the other thing that Spirit, like what came through to me was that when you are looking to make a breakthrough and you are choosing to step into something more for your life, something bigger that feels great, anything from your past that is stuck will start to come up for clearing. And so we can think, oh, I'm misaligned. But really it's that you're moving into a new state of alignment. So I think there's a difference between if you're constantly feeling awful, then you know that you're misaligned and you're having certain symptoms that are coming up and you feel really powerless, versus, okay, there is some type of growth happening here and not feeling good. The misalignment is temporary and it is a natural path of one's spiritual growth and stepping into greater potential with family, love, career, and finances.
Mm. Well, and you are the go-to person with this, and in regards to transformation and being in alignment spiritually. I know you've done thousands of intuitive readings and spiritual coaching sessions for like entrepreneurs and celebrities, you name it. And so people can really connect with you on many different levels. They can purchase the book, they can, go to your website, and I know you have meditations available and different free resources, as well as people booking private sessions with you.
Yes, there's some gift meditations I have on there. One of them in particular is the mind detox meditation. Mm-hmm. Because I know for myself that I could drive myself crazy at points. When that inner critic starts going in my head, which goes back to the rule 4 of forgiving mistakes, it is agonizing. And so I created the mind detox meditation to really be able to just get back to that place of alignment, to recenter, because you can get there very quickly. As quickly as you can move into misalignment, you can get back into a great alignment and then keep moving forwards. I know for myself when I have made mistakes and I've dwelled on those mistakes and I've had the intuition to go and take certain actions and I haven't taken those actions, that I have wasted months of time, months and months and months, even in some cases years. So I created the mind detox meditation and also the soul healing meditation as well, to be able to give someone the opportunity to release that build-up of energy. And I really believe strongly in the power of guided meditation, and that this misconception that you have to just sit there and have no thoughts and be totally peaceful, for most people it is not like that. And normally it takes years to get to that point. And I just love guided meditation because I think it gives people the opportunity to vision, to co-create on an internal level with spirit and with one's inner self to manifest that life that one desires. So the meditations is one aspect of things. And then I started off many years ago doing a lot of healing work. So I trained in all the different levels of Reiki, and then I traveled around the world and worked with different shamans and healers from a number of different indigenous cultures, from the Maori and the Native American tribes, a number of the different tribes, to being part of the Rosicrucian order, you name it. I sort of did it and went all over the place. And I saw there were these commonalities in how healing worked. And then my work evolved more into doing intuitive readings and also some mediumship as well, which I had a lot of resistance to doing the mediumship psychic readings. It terrified me, not because I was scared of spirit, although back when I first started to really open up to connecting to spirit, people on the other side, it was overwhelming. But what I found is the challenge for me with what that was is that I had such low self-esteem. I was really scared about saying the wrong thing, about not giving a right piece of information. And then the more and more I did the readings, the more and more I would get confirmation back from clients saying, oh my gosh, this was really spot on, or this really helped me, or this cleared energy. And so it's evolved over the years, where eventually I just gave myself permission to go, this is not about me being right or wrong and looking good doing a reading. This is about me being of service to someone here and helping them to have a breakthrough. And so it evolved into now where I do life path readings. They're one-off readings where I'm just helping a person plug into their greatest potential where they can manifest those big miracles for themselves. And that gives them the roadmap to be able to look ahead to what is the bigger vision of their life, what are they meant to be doing. It gives them confirmation of their dreams and where they're meant to go, and also to be able to have 5 actionable steps that they can implement right away to be more visible in the world or to generate income, right? Because it's no good having a vision for something, talking about doing something, but then not having it physically manifest. Because I was like that for years. I would talk and talk and talk, and then when I tried to launch my first business, this was, back in, I think it was in 1997, and I remember I took a trip to, maybe it was even a little bit before that, and I went to Sedona, and this, I remember being so inspired going there. I came back, I hired this graphic designer, and I called my company Sedona Innovations. I got this cool logo. I remember sitting down at my IKEA dining room table at the time in my condo in St. John's Wood in northwest London, and then having no clue how to do. I wanted to do inspirational PR, and I just could not get my head around it at all. I knew all these people and influencers, and I got totally stuck, and I didn't realize that there was a whole nother learning to go through, and I'm sure you have, right? A lot of experience around that too in the work that you do, right?
Yeah, and it's a journey. The whole thing's a journey, and that's why I have such great appreciation for your work and your book, because you really have been down that path, and you have the roadmap that shows people how to make these grand transformations that they've been looking in their lives. Because I can really resonate with everything that you've been saying, especially, at the beginning of our conversation, how, when we're initially searching for these things that are going to transform our lives, how, we attend these events and conferences and read these books, and they work for a little bit, but they don't have that lasting transformation that we really are desiring. And your book it's just it was easy to not only understand, but for people to go from point A to point B and just kind of walk through the next step of transformation.
Well, another really important thing that we're going through right now that I think will bring some peace to the listeners is that we are in such an age of transformation. I remember, and this was back in 1998, going to Egypt, and I got this download of an insight, and at the time I didn't fully understand. I understood it, but now I see over 20 years, around just under 20 years later, how it's taking an effect now. And it was that we would move from the Aquarius age into the age of light. And I feel that age of light is the digital age. And I think that as the digital age brings us closer and closer, everything is moving at such an accelerated pace, and it's wonderful because it means we can get places faster, we can reach more people, we're more connected at an intimate level in a way that if we think back to 100 years ago and how long it would take us to get across the country, or that I was reading with my son the other evening about Benjamin Franklin, because in England we didn't study American history, so to me it's fascinating sitting with him and learning about this. And he was sharing how he was writing letters back and forth with his son over a period of years. Excuse me. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh, everything was done in letters then. Now we can go on Facebook Messenger, or we can text message, or we can type, and everything is, right, it's so immediate, it's so fast. But I think also what's happening with that is the way that business is being done and the way that we interact is changing, and it's quite intense. It's wonderful, but it is a struggle for people to integrate that. Where before we would, I know my parents, my grandparents, the focus was get a job and you stick with it for life, right? It's 25 years. And then
that's the old school thought, yeah.
And now everyone is being displaced, and even larger corporations are hiring a lot of people independently. There are more and more, we're moving into a phase of entrepreneurship, and this is why I believe these 11 spiritual rules are more important than ever to really help people through these transitions, because you have to, I believe, from what I see out there, to succeed, you have to be able to be in business for yourself, or even if you are an employee working for someone, that you need to look at yourself as your own boss as well, and be able to think of yourself as a brand too, and that the idea of, well, how do you figure out what your brand is? You connect into yourself and you find out what is that message, which goes back to your life purpose. So that was another thing that my hope when I wrote Big Miracles was, how can I help people through this transition? Because I had a client of mine who was very high up at, we say in England Adidas, but I guess here in the States you say Adidas. And she was looking after a massive team. And I remember one day getting on the phone with her, and she said, I am terrified. I want to work for myself, and I just don't even know where to start. And I've forgotten that experience I shared with you of when I tried to launch my spiritual PR company back all those years ago, and it is more important than ever to be able to tap inwards through these rapidly changing times, and that we have new industries coming up as well. I mean, let me just tell you, I was awful at physics at school and chemistry. I was very much the arts and languages and French and Italian and history and Latin and, yeah, physics and chemistry, awful. And then I love how Napoleon Hill, he talks about the mastermind. And in one of his books, his book called Selling You, he talks about the marriage mastermind. I love opening books just landing on a certain page. And when he spoke about the marriage mastermind, I thought, oh, that's so inspiring that, I think, and even if it's that you're not married to someone, who is someone that you're really close to, maybe a sibling or a best friend, where you can collaborate and support each other's visions. And I found that the longer that I have been married, the more and more my husband and I, our visions have converged together. And so for him, his vision is around, as we're going through these massive changes, is around sustainability and really being able to make where we can travel from point A to point B in a fraction of the time that we do now, in a super green way. And this idea of traveling from LA to New York in, say, 45 minutes. And I remember going back to 2009 or 2010, really feeling this vision come through. And I had a lot of resistance to it. But now I found, as I'm following these 11 rules, it's giving me the courage to be a support in his vision as well. And I said to him, I don't know anything about physics or engineering really. And he's just sort of said, we'll just simplify it, break it down piece by piece. So now I'm embracing taking these 11 rules and applying them to creating door-to-door space travel on Earth. So that's
you gotta love that.
I mean, who would have thought? Right.
I hope to see that in my lifetime. I want to sign up for that. That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing it. So
you tell your honey to keep working on that. Oh my goodness.
Definitely.
Well, Joanna, I hate to do this. We're at the end of our time. I could talk to you all day on this topic. I mean, you're just, what an inspiration. But thank you for taking the time to be with us here today.
Oh, thank you, Marianne. It was wonderful. I've so enjoyed connecting with you and love everything that you're doing as well. So it's an honor to be a guest on your show.
Well, the honor's all mine, and we'll definitely have you back on the show again. I mean, this is just way too much fun, So we'll talk about scheduling up another time. So, but okay. And for our listeners, we're going to pause here for a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. Our next guest is here today to talk to us about speaking your voice. Deborah Shames wrote this book called Out Front, How Women Can Become Engaging, Memorable, and Fearless Speakers.
Ooh, can we use more of that? So welcome to the show, Deborah Shames.
Thank you.
What a joy it is to have you here. We can really use more tips on how women can find their voice.
Exactly. And after 10 to 15 years of coaching very talented professionals, executives in all fields, it drives me crazy the way women hold themselves back because they either don't want to or are afraid to speak in public. Mm-hmm. And I wrote the book after 9 years because it was time to do something about it.
You know, I'm so glad that you did. And I know that you talk about your own personal journey in this book as well.
After 9 years, what I finally decided when I had open heart surgery 2 years ago was that time is finite. And I had two things on my bucket list. I wanted to hike the Andes in Patagonia, which, by the way, I did 4 months after surgery, and finish the book for women that I've been working on for so many years. And I have to tell you, finishing the book was much harder than hiking the mountains.
Although I've heard that mountain's quite a treacherous hike, so, you know, that's quite a feat. You must have a new bucket list after all that, you know?
I do, but you know what? Working with women, talented women, and giving them the permission and the tools, I want that to be my legacy. I want that to be, David and I, my partner and I, have had Eloquy, our company, since 99, but there's nothing that gives me greater joy than to see talented women get ahead and achieve their objectives.
What are some tips that women can use? Let's say maybe they're just getting out to being a speaker and they're like, you know, what are some of the tips that they can use to, you know, just make that impact they're looking to make?
Well, there's two factors at play. There's the external factors that are beyond our control. How women are judged differently than men if they're ambitious. How our voices are considered by a male audience. And there's not much we can do about it, nor should we. But what holds women back are things like the critical voice in our heads that says, if I'm not an expert, I don't deserve to speak on a subject. Or I need to be perfect, so I'm going to research and write out and memorize or read my notes. And that's never the way to be an engaging speaker. Or the feeling that the belief that an audience is judging us harshly, which isn't the case at all. An audience wants us to be good. They want us to give them something valuable to take away.
So when you're working, let's say you're working with a new client that's come to you, what is the number one thing that you see women, that's like a common thread that you see that these women have issues with?
It's that critical voice in our heads that speaks to us and keeps us from being in the moment and keeps us from engaging with an audience, which is why I recommend having an outline, then having a dynamic open and a strong close. because once you feel the audience with you, there's nothing like it. It's a very powerful, almost like a drug, and so few women experience it. And once I can get our women clients to shut off that critical voice, to stop, it's like multitasking. You can't drive and look at your phone at the same time. It's the same with women who have that voice speaking to them, as opposed to saying, I have a clear intention, I'm going to engage an audience, and I'm going to achieve what I want to. There's nothing like it.
So when you're working, I mean, because, gosh, you've got such an amazing background. I mean, a former TV and television director. I mean, you know what people are looking for as far as a speaker goes. And
yes.
How did you develop those techniques?
Well, when you're in film and television, when you're a director, you always want to bring out the best in performers, and you have to be on time and on budget. So I had to find the tools, especially with actresses, to get them sharp, to not lose takes. And so many of the concepts in my book and in our training comes from my work in the entertainment industry. For example, you need to overcome anxiety. Some anxiety keeps you sharp and the synapses are firing and you know what you need to do when you're on the ice or when you're on stage or when you're in the middle of a performance. The other thing is to have a clear intention. What is it that you want to achieve? One thing more than anything else. And then take on a role. And I don't mean an acting role. I mean something that we've all experienced, like the role of a seasoned veteran or a motivator or a facilitator. All of these things give us the tools to be effective when all eyes are on us, because many women don't like that feeling of, oh my God, I'm in the center of the stage, the spotlight is on me. But when you do that, then the public perceives you as a leader, as the go-to person, and that's my goal. So here's another tip. We were all taught to leave ourselves out of our presentations because it may seem self-aggrandizing or self-promoting. I say, put yourself back in. Give an I statement. I've experienced, I believe, I know. When you do that and give your perspective, it not only reduces your anxiety, but it allows the audience to really see what your investment is, what's your skin in the game. Nothing like it.
So when you're teaching people to develop, like what their story should be, whether it's
yes.
a keynote or if they're working at a retreat, what do you feel is the most compelling, in using those I stories?
Well, no matter where you're speaking, it can be being an advocate for your child who has special needs. It can be giving a toast at a wedding. It can be speaking on your topic, the development of real estate in downtown LA. First of all, you need structure. This is not about speaking and showing people what an expert you are and how much you know about a topic. It's around engaging an audience. I like to say, if you educate people, you get them to think. If you persuade them, you get them to act. So when you're going to be persuasive, first thing you need to do is identify your intention. Then you pick the role, and it's both based on your audience. And then have a clear structure. So you have a compelling open, and that's where you can share something about yourself or your perspective. Divide your content into no more than 3 buckets or talking points, and then end strong. When you do that, the Harvard Business Review had an article that said the 2 things that makes a speaker most compelling are their structure and their engagement or passion in the subject, with the subject. And then you're well on your way. Then you have an outline that you can follow without ever having to memorize your content.
When the speaker's talking about something they're really passionate about, people can get hooked in and really be
yes.
involved in their story with them.
Yes, as opposed to apologizing or saying, oh, if I had more time to prepare, I'd be better. No, you'd probably be worse because you take yourself out of it.
You know, I have known people that have stayed up all night the night before a big event, and you're just kind of psyching themselves out.
Let me comment on that a minute. You bring up a great point. Women tend to over-prepare. We want to be the good girl. We want to be perfect. We don't want to disappoint ourselves or the people that care about us. And with structure and with practice, you don't need to spend as much time. None of us have enough time. We're all juggling. And then what you said was they often give a really good presentation. When that happens, bask in your success. Don't do what so many women do and say, oh, but Deborah, I left out a key point, or I could have been better, or did you see that the decision maker left the room? When we do that, we don't serve ourselves. Instead, if you bask in your success and you say, I nailed it, I did it, then the next time you'll be much more available and ready to dive in and do it again. And you'll have that positive memory instead of a negative memory leading you, driving you.
And I think that is such great advice because, you know, who wants to get it back on that horse if it's kind of bucked you off and ran you over, you know?
Great point. And even, you're so right. And whether it's the structure of your whole presentation, whether it's telling a story, there's a way to tell a story that has a message that you can remember it. And actually, anything you speak about that you experienced, we can all remember it as long as we don't try to get it perfect. And by the way, you don't write and speak the same way. So writing it out in perfectly constructed sentences doesn't serve us. Instead, it's better to be conversational because then an audience believes that you're speaking to us in the moment. You're present. You're not accessing something that happened a long time that you memorized or copying anyone else, which is not a good idea.
Now, what are some, I know a lot of times, I have touched on it a little bit before, where we get speakers and they're really anxious or nervous about giving that speech. And it could be, they're talking to, a local group that they're in. It could be a keynote speech that they're doing.
Yes.
What are some ways that they can overcome that?
Great question. And in my book Out Front, I spend a lot of time dealing with anxiety because that's what holds so many women back. It can be terrifying. And it was Jerry Seinfeld, the comic, who said most people would rather be in the coffin than deliver the eulogy at a funeral. So that's how pervasive it is.
Yeah.
So a couple things. First of all, some people have anxiety speaking to strangers, while others have anxiety speaking to their colleagues. It doesn't matter. It diminishes us. It restricts us. So one, reduce surprises. Anxiety happens when we've planned, we've prepared, and then something changes. We are on at a different time than we expect. The room is larger than we expect. The decision maker leaves or says, I'm sorry, I know I told you have 45 minutes, but I've got a conference call. Can you wrap it up in 5 minutes? Or you stand up to speak and the sun is in your eyes. Or your PowerPoint doesn't work. So any way you can minimize surprises will minimize anxiety. That's the first thing.
So when those kind of things happen, the PowerPoint isn't working, the sun's in your eyes, what do you suggest to those speakers? Do they just make fun of it and light of it and keep going, or?
Great. If you do that, the audience is totally with you. And have a backup plan. If your PowerPoint doesn't work, say, I don't need it. I can get out in front of it because it's not my crutch. It's not my script on my cueing device. Think about anything that could happen and plan for it. When I go to give a keynote or a presentation, I always check out the room, the space that I'll be presenting in. And I'll walk it and practice a few lines out loud if it's empty so that I can own that space. It's mine and it won't throw me off.
Oh, that's perfect. So you get really comfortable with that area.
Absolutely. The other thing you can do, what causes anxiety is when a woman believes that she needs to be perfect. and you had the answer. Never tell a joke, but poke fun at yourself. If something doesn't work, or let's say all of a sudden you realize you're speeding up, say, I need to switch to decaf. No more espressos. Or if you bumble or fumble a word, say, in English, that would be. And make
That is classic. I'm going to remember that one.
Yeah. Well, you're on the radio. I mean, this happens to everyone. And when you can step out in front of it without apologizing, the audience appreciates you even more, because most of them go, I can't do that. I don't know that I would have the presence of mind.
You know, and I think that that's such an important message, too, because when anyone's starting out in their speaking career, I mean, we all have to start from the beginning somewhere. You know, very few of us are able to kind of take the podium over and just run with it. And, you know, a lot of times we do fumble around, and, you know, everything, you know, if anything's going to go wrong, it all goes wrong, you know?
Yes, it compounds. And in my entire 15 years of coaching and training, I have yet to meet anyone born a great speaker.
That's good to know, because sometimes you get these really galvanizing speakers on stage and you're like, oh my God, where did this person come from? You know, they're just like, you know, it's like, you know, sitting with the divine listening to them. And really it's just that they've had really good practice.
Exactly. Malcolm Gladwell wrote in his book, I don't know if it was Blink or Made to Stick, but he said, mastery takes 10,000 hours. Well, I can tell you, Marianne, it doesn't take 10,000 hours to become a great speaker, but you have to put your attention on it, because most people focus on the content and never look at the delivery. And I see women who are uncomfortable on stage, they cross their legs, they look down, they fumble, their voice doesn't project. And what's the message that they're delivering? They're delivering that they're not comfortable with their content or their presence. So sometimes you gotta fake it till you make it. Walk out there, put your shoulders back, make good eye contact, and say to yourself, I'm gonna nail it. Because that's what men will do.
From what I understand, I think women actually give a better presence sometimes, where people really do want to listen to what women have to say.
You are absolutely right. Women are great collaborators. We work well behind the scenes. We tell great stories. So when I coach and train, what we do is, and we have a whole team of trainers now, and it's working with women so that their great personalities one-on-one will be translated for when they stand up in front of a room. Because it's really no different than sitting across from someone at your kitchen table or your conference table and engaging with them. You may just need bigger gestures, but there's always a way to translate who you are in front of a bigger audience, in front of a stage. And we're hungry for those kind of speakers who are authentic, who come across as someone believable. And it's everything from the way you dress, the way you structure your content, to we can always tell when someone really enjoys her topic, and there's nothing better.
Do you do individual coaching? If someone says, hey, do you know what, I need to have my, you know, like my bio crafted about who it is I am and what my story is.
We're working with an Olympic swimmer who has a documentary, Wendy, because her team in the 70s Olympic was the only relay team that beat the Germans who were caught doping. We're working with CEOs. We're working with a financial advisor at TD Ameritrade. Everyone has a different purpose for coming in, but they want the one-on-one because they've decided that speaking or communication is important to them, and they're willing to invest the time and the effort.
It's not just about how, you know, women present themselves, but it really has to do a lot with, you know, I guess with our self-esteem and how, you know, how we're putting ourselves out in the world, and how we talk to ourselves also after we do each event.
I'm so glad you bring that up. My partner, David, was a stage and a film actor, and he loves it. Well, I don't know that I'll ever love it, But one of those times when we got a standing ovation, I went, oh my God, it's such an adrenaline rush. This is very cool. And if you want to impact people, much better to do it in front of an audience of 50 or 100 or 1,000. It just takes longer than one-on-one.
Well, and I'm glad you touched on that because I've been to many conferences over my lifetime, more than I can count. But what are some tips that you can give if someone feels like they're there and they're, gosh, I'm losing my crowd. They're checking their phone. This is not good.
Well, that's a great comment. First of all, the bar is so low that if you just have a compelling open and you're enthusiastic, you'll be so much better than the other speakers. So that's the first thing.
That's good. Have to be enthusiastic. Yeah. We got that one.
Yes, you have to be invested in your subject. Somebody once said, I was taught to smile. And I went, so if you're talking about grieving and a very negative subject, you're going to smile? No. Yeah. You have to be authentic. Start in low ante environments. That's key. And receive feedback. Women are often hesitant because if someone asked you, Marianne, how did I do? You'd say, oh, great, fine. Get real feedback. Find out when someone zoned out and lost your message because you went off on another course or you gave too many details or you were too general. Because a lot of speakers, men and women, go general to be polite and considerate. That makes them totally forgettable. I advocate speaking in visual snapshots. Make your audience see it. If you can do that, you're well on your way to having us decide in your favor because the decision-making part of the brain is right next to the visual part of the brain. So when you're describing your product or services, give me a simile, a metaphor, or an example, and I will play the movie in my head and follow along with you simply because you made it come alive. One of the problems women have is copying old models that don't work anymore. So if men are general, they go general. If men are monotone, they go monotone. Wrong way to go. I like to say everything people learned about public speaking is broken. We're in the 21st century. We need to really do it differently to set ourselves apart.
Deborah, we could talk all day. I just love your content, and we'll definitely have to have you back on the show. I know you're an extremely busy lady. My goodness, you've got all these events coming up. Where can people connect with you and those lucky few that want to have that personal one-on-one time with you? Where could they go ahead and submit their information for consideration?
I would love it. Go to outfront.biz. Not com, not net, outfront, one word, .biz. And you can reach me through the website. And by the way, once women become my clients, they do a workshop or one-on-one, they can call or email me for the rest of their lives to rehearse or to coach. And David and I still have clients back from 2000. And I love it. So
that's got to be so... It really has to touch your heart to see these, different people that you've worked with and see them grow,
Especially millennials. We have millennials who are in HR positions, who are working their way up in their company. And when we give them, or I can give them permission to take these skills and set themselves apart, and then they email me and they're so excited, that's so satisfying. I'll bet you get the same thing, and there's nothing like it.
You can never start too early to be that dynamic woman. You really can't.
Exactly. And I wish I had had these skills back when I was in my 30s and becoming a producer and director. And I got beaten down so many times and picked myself back up. But there wasn't the same community that I see now. So it's a good time.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Deborah, for taking the time to be on the show with us today. My goodness, we greatly appreciate you being here, and of course, talking about your book, Out Front, which everyone needs to go and buy. And if you have a lady in your life, you definitely want to go and buy it for her, regardless of what kind of job she has, because every woman needs to speak their voice.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're a great interviewer. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in today. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
Join us next time for Moments with Marianne, when host Marianne Pestana brings another inspirational gifted leader to help us grow. Tune in every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Moments with Marianne, when the Dream Vision 7 radio network is at 1510 a.m. Boston. Or catch Moments with Marianne every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern Time by going to dreamvision7radio.com. To learn how Marianne started her business from the ground up, visit mariannepestana.com. Don't miss this, and remember, make every moment count.